And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Dragons!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
And we're going to start off with the injury report. We got Alvin Kamara. He's been limited this week with a rib injury. He was limited Wednesday. Don't have the latest as far as today, but from what I can tell, he should be fine. They just had him limited, just kind of keeping bubble wrap around him to keep him fresh for the Buccaneers matchup. I don't know. Have you heard anything about Alvin Kamara, Josh? Is he still?
No, but it makes a lot of sense how he didn't really perform up to what we thought he would. You know, I think that injury must have been pretty early, and because he really didn't do what everyone expected him to.
Yeah.
And the problem is we don't know, you know, this could, you know, last for a while. You know,
That's right.
Rib injuries hard to get over, especially when you're constantly getting hit.
Yep.
I'm sure he'll be wearing like a flak jacket or whatever, you know, but you know, he's fought through injuries before and played with injuries. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
We might get a little more Mark Ingram, you know, pounding the ball through the middle.
That's right.
So,
or
it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, and with, you know, Tampa Bay's run defense is pretty stout, so they could be throwing the ball a little bit more this matchup, and that could be more Alvin Kamara catching the ball, which would be great for Alvin Kamara owners. I know they'd love to see that after Week 1's performance, which we'll talk about all that here in a minute. I did just look up.
I'm not big on the running game for New Orleans against Tampa Bay this week.
I did just I did all my injury report probably about 3 or 4 hours ago, and I just searched for Alvin Kamara again. It looks like he did not practice today, but they're probably just doing a maintenance day and looking at his reps. As far as I'm reading, he did not have a setback or anything. So if you got Kamara, don't freak out. He should be fine, but he did not practice today. I definitely keep an eye, but I bet he gets at least a limited practice in.
He'll be limited
tomorrow.
You know, probably for several weeks, actually.
Yeah. Second guy we got, Najee Harris with a foot injury. He was limited Wednesday. I don't think I had anything for today. Let me pull it up because looks like he practiced fully today. So
he said he was playing. He came out and said, "I'll be playing." So but it just, and we talked about this, I think, in another podcast
right before the last game.
Scary. It's very scary to have him knowing this could linger on all year. And you know, you play him, he gets hurt in the first quarter, he comes out. So and Warren.
I would definitely have Warren if I own.
You gotta have
Harris.
him.
No,
I have Harris in a keeper league, and this week I made it a priority to pick up Warren,
definitely,
just in case. They seem to like him there.
Yep.
So you know, if he goes down, I mean, he's not going to be Najee Harris, but you know, at least you'll have a starting running back.
I still think he could be a decent RB2 with the catches because he's really good at catching the ball. He caught the ball pretty good bit in preseason. They're pretty high. Like they said he is the RB2. So I don't see any reason why if he got in there, he wouldn't be a 3-down back also because he can catch the ball. He ran between the tackles pretty well, even though their offensive line is somewhat suspect. But he can still do it all as far as a runner. He's not Najee Harris like you just said, but he's going to be the man if Najee Harris does go down for any reason.
And even if you don't have Harris, I mean, he'd be a good stash to have on your bench, you know, just in case something did happen to Harris.
If you got an extra spot, for sure. Next guy up, we got DeAndre Swift with an ankle injury. He did not practice today or yesterday, which is kind of concerning. But he talked to the media, was interviewed yesterday, told the media he was fine. He actually played with the injury during the game Sunday. Said it happened in like the second quarter. So that's kind of that's kind of some hope right there for DeAndre Swift owners, because if he was playing with it, I mean, obviously he could play with it still. He's probably just kind of resting up, getting treatment. But once again, he didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today. I definitely keep an eye on it for him to at least get a limited practice, maybe tomorrow. But he's also one of those guys. He's been there long enough. He's good enough. He really doesn't have to practice to play, but I would keep an eye on it before the game. And then once again, he's another guy, just like Najee Harris with Swift. You got to have Jamal Williams just in case, because he's going to be the guy, and he's already getting work anyway.
Yeah, the problem with Williams is he's already probably on somebody's team.
Yep.
I doubt he's on the waiver wire.
Yep.
Possible, but if he is, you definitely need to pick him up or work out a trade, maybe, to try to pick him up.
Definitely. Next guy we got here is Leonard Fournette. Popped up. I think he popped up yesterday. He was limited in practice yesterday. He was a full go in practice today, which means he should be good. They're just looking, but with Leonard Fournette's history, I don't know if I said, but it's a hamstring injury. With his history, you never know with him, but should be good to go. They're probably just, doing maintenance, keeping his workload down with him being the bell cow there. And seeing so much run as he did last week on Sunday night. But I mean, as long as he doesn't have a setback, he should be good to go. But he does have a tough road to sled with New Orleans coming up this weekend.
I did remember him limping off the field towards the end of that game, so I was kind of wondering if something hadn't come up with him.
With him being full today, I think he's going to be okay. But unless he has a setback, I'd definitely keep an eye on it if I had him.
But, he's played through injuries his whole career, even back to college.
Yep, that's exactly right. Next guy, same team, Mike Evans. Calf injury popped up on the injury report Wednesday, limited. Didn't practice today. I think it's going to be one of those same situations, though, as Alvin Kamara. Probably just doing maintenance today, trying to keep his reps under tabs and just kind of not let him have a setback or reoccurrence. I would definitely be looking for him to get limited probably tomorrow. But I'd be keeping an eye on it if I had Mike Evans. But with them being kind of, with Godwin being out and Julio Jones kind of banged up and Russell Gage banged up already, they're probably not going to practice any of their wide receivers any more than they need to. Because they don't want to take a chance on anybody getting some kind of injury, that redundant injury during practice. But I
they're
think
all
it's maintenance.
veterans. They're
That's
all
right.
veterans, so
That's right.
they know what to do when they get on the field.
Definitely. Next to him, I got Julio. Didn't practice Wednesday. Didn't practice today. I mean, Julio, one of the best veterans in the business. Got Brady throwing to him. They looked like they had some good chemistry last week, even though they didn't really have to throw the ball much because they were leading for most of the game. I don't think they have to practice a whole bunch to be on the same page. I would think he probably gets a limited practice in before their game this weekend, but I'd keep an eye on it. He should have a big expanded role with Chris Godwin being out. I really like him. We'll talk about him some more later.
Yeah, I think we both like him.
That's right. Next guy that popped up, I was kind of surprised. I didn't hear about this guy until today, but Michael Pittman with a quad injury. He was limited Wednesday, did not practice today, which seems to be a common theme with some of these stud players. Once again, probably just maintenance related. I just keep an eye on him over the next couple of days, make sure he didn't have a setback. They just said he didn't practice. They haven't said why. I would think he'd get a limited practice in, but once again, he's got another veteran savvy quarterback. He's a professional, he's a vet. He's not a rookie anymore. I don't think he has to have too much practice to play, but I would definitely keep an eye on it just to make sure with him. I don't know. You haven't heard anything else about him, right?
No.
Okay. Next guy.
I didn't even know he was on there.
Yeah. Well, I just added him today, and I was looking at his news, and then that's what it was telling me. So we'll see, but I bet he's fine. They're just kind of keeping a tab on his reps. Next guy, we all know this pretty much, but I'm gonna go over it just in case somebody's living under a rock out there. Keenan Allen with a hamstring. which that is for tonight. Most of the guys on here we're not talking about that play tonight, but he's going to probably be out this week. I would definitely keep an eye on him for next week. I'd be, they're optimistic, but, with his history of hamstring injuries, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because if it was bad enough, it could definitely be a multi-week injury, but I'd just keep an eye on him for next week. But it's definitely good that they're sitting him out this week and not trying to push for him to play, because that'll probably give him a lot of this extra rest and give him a lot better chance to play next week.
Yeah. The problem with that is they got a big game tonight.
They do.
You definitely want him on the field, but he's getting on up there in age. I think he's 30. So you definitely, it's going to take a couple of weeks probably for him to get back. Yep. And you don't want to rush something like that. I mean, he has had a history of having injuries before, not so much that he couldn't play through them.
Exactly right.
But being up in age makes a difference. So
definitely.
And he's a good player, and they need him on the field.
Definitely.
Next, and they need him for the long run.
Oh, no doubt. He's definitely a vital part for their offense.
Super Bowl run.
Yeah, it could be if they shore up that defense. Their offense definitely can handle it. Next guy up, T. Higgins, concussion. I know everybody's keeping an eye on this one because of that prolific offense, and he was such a high draft pick. He was limited Wednesday. They said he's clearing all the hurdles that he needs to. He doesn't really have a history of concussions, which is great, but he didn't practice today due to a personal matter. They didn't say what it is, but he didn't practice today due to that. I doubt very seriously with the stringent concussion protocol the NFL has that he clears by this weekend. But you never know. I'd keep an eye on it, but I wouldn't get my hopes up. I'd be ready to have somebody else to plug in there.
Yeah, I doubt he plays. We usually don't see them play.
Yeah, they say seven days after the concussion is normally the quickest that they can get back. So I would get my hopes up, but technically he hasn't been ruled out yet. So, if you got him, you keep your fingers crossed, but don't get your hopes up for sure. The next guy, George Kittle, another guy, just didn't get off to a good start for the season with that groin injury. What I was told originally that it was a grade 2 strain, which is a pretty significant strain as far as a groin injury goes, and normally a multi-week absence. They haven't really been talking about that as much, but he didn't practice yesterday. Let me double check and see if they've updated that for today. Let's see.
They really need him after that. After seeing that last game.
And didn't practice. Yeah, definitely. Didn't practice again today. So doesn't look good for him playing. They're still hoping he might. I mean, if he got a limited practice in, he could possibly play, but he would definitely be on some kind of a snap count. Just trying to keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't re-injure that. But I would. He's another guy I would not get my hopes up for. I think that he's probably not going to play again this weekend. Definitely a lot better chance to play next week if he sits out again this weekend.
Yeah, I doubt it. And plus, with the opponent, they might give him another week because
that's right.
They really should win this game without him.
Definitely. Next guy, which I should have lumped him in with other guys on his team because their whole wide receiver core is injured. Chris Godwin. Most of us know about him. Once again, live under a rock. We're telling you right now, he's got a hamstring injury. They're thinking it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. He's not practicing. They haven't officially ruled him out, but that was the last thing they said. So I don't think he's going to play this week. Good thing is he's not going on injury reserve, which means he doesn't have to miss 4 weeks minimum, but he's not going to be out there this week, which once again leads to a player we're going to talk about here in just a little bit.
Well, another thing with him, at least it wasn't the knee.
That's exactly right.
Because if it was the knee, you'd really be worried.
And if you want me to throw out some statistics there that I heard on a show earlier this week, they say and interesting enough, it was the same leg that was the knee. And what the statistic I heard was that a positional player, specifically a running back or wide receiver coming off an ACL tear, the next season has about a 26 to 27% chance of injuring their hamstring during their play as they start back or during recovery. So that's kind of not surprising for some people, because 26, 27, that's 1 in every 4 people that tear their ACL, athletes that tear their ACL, running back, wide receiver, they're going to suffer a hamstring injury. I guess it just has to do
see
with,
that.
The weakened muscles in the leg, recouping it, probably the fatigue from, rehabbing that leg. But either way, out 2 to 3 weeks. We'll keep him on here. We'll be updating you as we go each week.
One thing bad about that, and I know me and you both have him in leagues.
Oh yeah,
and we're hoping we could get him on the field, but it looks like it's going to be a few more weeks. And another thing is I think he had 1 catch. The 1 catch he had, he actually looked really good.
He did. He looked like he had some good burst. Honestly, got my hopes up a lot because I got him on. I think I got him on 3 or 4 teams, and he got my hopes up a pretty good bit. But I mean, hey, if he can just rehab and come back, I'll take him for 3/4 of the season for sure.
No doubt.
Next guy, J.K. Dobbins, looks like he's going to be back this week, coming back from that ACL. We just talked about, we've got to watch out for those hamstring injuries. So hopefully he's not going to be 1 and 4, but he was full participant in practice Wednesday and Thursday. I would expect him to play barring any setback this weekend. But if you are going to play him, I would temper my expectations because he's probably going to be on a snap count. Considering he's pretty much the future of their franchise at running back, I don't think they're going to just put him out there and go full bore. I could be wrong, but they got several running backs, and the way they like to use them, I think he's going to be on a snap count this weekend for sure.
Well, and they've been extra careful with him. They didn't let him play the first week. He said he was ready.
That's right.
But they held him out. And it seems like Baltimore's always really good with these injuries, trying to make sure they don't just rush him in.
Definitely.
So I'm like you. I think if he does play with the 3 running backs they have, he won't get
I think if he's
all the carries.
If he does well this weekend with no setbacks, I bet he's a full go next weekend. No holdbacks. If he does well, they'll probably keep him limited in practice next week after this week, just because they'll probably be just looking out for him being sore. But I would think he'll be good to go after this weekend if he doesn't have any problems. Next guy that I added today, I don't remember seeing on there yesterday, but I added him on there today, was Zach Ertz, calf injury. I know he played last week. They're probably just managing his reps since he did play last week, but he didn't practice Wednesday, but he's expected to be a full go today. And let me double check, see if they've updated that.
Well, I think this is something we're going to see all year with him.
And he does put in a full practice today, so that's good. He's 31. We've talked about older players. They're just, once you hit 30, it seems like you're more likely to end up with some kind of a soft tissue injury, because of the strenuous activity these guys put in a short amount of time. They're world-class athletes, but the body, it does catch up to you eventually. But
the thing about him,
yeah, go ahead.
you hate is if he's healthy, he's a top 10 back.
Definitely.
I mean, tight end, no doubt. So you hate to see that. I mean, even hobbling around.
Yep.
Last week, he still had a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. So they're going to go to him if he's healthy. So
that's right.
That's somebody that if he gets healthy, I don't think he'll be 100% the whole year.
No, but if he is, like you said, I mean, I'd put him in the bank for at least 10 points a week.
Yeah.
Him and Kyler got it. They got a good chemistry going, and I think he'll. I think he's going to be good if he can just stay healthy. Next guy, Elijah Mitchell. He's another one of those guys that's been all over the news and everything else. Hurt his MCL during the game. They're expecting, they put him on IR, which means you have to miss at least 4 weeks, but they're expecting him with this. I think it's a grade 2 MCL strain, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to be out about 2 months, which, you might get him back right there at the end of the fantasy playoffs, depending on, honestly, looking at them play last week against Chicago. I mean, who's to say they might not even make they might be just playing their rookies, might not even make the playoffs and just say, hey, rest up and we'll wait till next year. But it's a little too early to tell that. So, if you got him and you got an IR spot, slide him in there, pick up, it's too late to pick up Jeff Wilson now, I'm sure. But, there's plenty of that might be a spot that you pick up Jaylen Warren and see what happens with Najee Harris, or if Jamal Williams is available,
With San Francisco, it makes me think, with these rookies they have, I'm not so sure that they're going to run him out there, because they picked up Marlon Mack today.
Yeah,
a veteran.
Put him on practice squad.
Yeah, so it makes. I don't think they're real impressed with the rookies as maybe some people thought.
Yeah.
I believe Debo's going to probably be the one that
I'm right there with you.
Probably gets a whole lot of carries.
Right
and
there
Trey
with
Lance, he had 13 carries last week. He could get up 15, 17
I was
carries.
about to say 15 would probably not seem out of the norm at this point.
Which would make his numbers better for those that have him. I think Jeff Wilson's going to get he's going to get carries. He's going to be – if you're the number one running back for San Francisco, you're worth a play, because they're going to run the ball a whole lot. And especially with Trey Lance not really throwing the ball good.
They're right.
Going to pound it and run it.
And that's the thing about the 49ers. One good thing is your number one running back for them is going to get the goal line work most of the time. And that's going to be Jeff Wilson. So if they can get down there, then I think he's going to get most of the goal line work. Now they're going to have those trick plays where they give it to Debo, on the end around or something crazy like that. But for the most part, I expect Jeff Wilson to get the goal line work.
Are they not the most unluckiest team when it comes to running backs?
Boy,
the same thing happened last year.
Yeah,
they went through more than one last year. I actually think. They're just unlucky, but they run the ball a lot.
Yeah,
so they.
Yeah, and you go ahead, and I'll add something to that.
Well, I was just going to say they run the ball a lot. So whenever you're constantly, running the ball, trying to go around people or through people, you're going to get injured. So
that's right.
That might be part of it.
And some people have talked about, I know we didn't talk about it on the last podcast, but because we didn't know, but the field conditions for that game were atrocious. They were literally standing in water playing on the football field, and it's grass, it's not turf. So they're, the footing is terrible. And that's hard on your knees and joints. And honestly, I'm shocked more people didn't come out injured from that game.
You're right.
But
they called it a slip and slide. Did you see them after the game?
I did.
Running through there. Well, Chicago was, because they won. And they were just having a party out there, just slipping and doing the slip and slide thing. And that might be why Trey Lance didn't have a good game, because he's scared to really go at it.
I'll tell you, I got him in a couple leagues just as a lottery ticket. He's not I'm not really resting on him, but I got him in a couple leagues, and I'm hoping that's what it is. But I still, man, I'm hearing the rumblings of Jimmy Garoppolo. The more and the more that he does, that there's a lot of people talking that if he goes out there and stinks it up this week, that it's going to be a lot of pressure, because they had high expectations this year, and
they didn't give Jimmy G all that money, to set back and not make the playoffs.
Well, they restructured his contract. They really haven't given him. Honestly, I think somebody said that he's going to only get he's like a $6 million cap hit or something like that, with up to $10 million or. Man, I have to go back and look. It's like $8 million incentives. So, if he does play,
if he plays,
and he gets this many yards, this many games, and wins this many, he can make a lot more. But just for sitting on the bench, I think he's only accumulating about $6 million, which is very beneficial for them, and kind of for him too, because he gets to sit on the bench and make money, and not have to do anything.
Well, this will be the big test this week.
It will be.
Because there's no excuse. There won't be any excuses after this week.
That's right. Next guy we got, Alan Lazard. I know a lot of people were looking forward to seeing him play and kind of break out this year. Now that Devontae Adams is gone, looks like he practiced limited Wednesday and limited Thursday. It's a good sign. But, I mean, he's been out for, I think, almost 2 weeks now. I would keep watching just to make sure he doesn't have any setbacks. I would hope he gets a full practice in tomorrow before their game this weekend. But, you know, he's been on the team long enough. He's been playing with Aaron Rodgers. They got enough chemistry. I think he could probably give it a go, even if he doesn't get a full practice in. But I would watch it if I have him. I mean, it's kind of one of those. It's going to come down to till they say if he's active or not. You know, I don't know if you've heard anything else about him.
No, I know he's wanting to get out there, and I know Rodgers is wanting to get out there because
no doubt about
when the rookie dropped that one or went right through his hands the other day, the look on Rodgers' face
that said it all.
He's about done with those rookies already.
That's exactly right. And then the last guy, last but not least, all the Cowboys fans out there. I'm going to talk about Dak Prescott. You know, broke his thumb, another one of those injuries, you know, that everybody's been talking about. Had surgery the next day. They're not putting him on IR, which is kind of surprising to me, considering it was his thumb on his throwing hand. But supposedly, the surgery went a lot better than they anticipated, which is good. They didn't. The key thing is what I also heard was that they did not have to put a pin in his thumb to immobilize it, which is very important.
Really?
They just had to put plate and screws in, and it's extremely important because as soon as the incision heals, he can go straight to rehab. So, and that normally only takes about, 5 to 10 days, give or take, probably closer to 7 to 10. But as soon as that heals, he can start straight rehabbing it. And the plate and screws, they're there, and it should start to heal on its own in that time. And he won't lose all that strength in his hand that he would if he had to have it immobilized for a certain amount of time after surgery. So that's why it went from, I think the original timeline was like 6 to 8 weeks. And then we heard 4 to 6 weeks, and now they're not even putting him on the IR, which is a minimum of 4 weeks. So they're expecting to be back within 4 weeks, which is, great for Dak Prescott owners. But, it's probably going to be closer to he might come back week 4 instead of coming back, after 4 weeks.
Well, Dr. Jerry said he was going to be back within 3 to 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, it wouldn't surprise me if he was in the OR during the surgery, telling the surgeon what to do. But who knows? He was probably in there telling him, you better not put a pin in that hand. That's the only chance we got of making the playoffs this year. Anyway.
Well, let's be honest. He didn't look real great before he got injured.
He really looked pretty rusty, honestly.
Yeah.
But that's something else that we hadn't talked about on the pod yet, but I was thinking about talking about on this one, is that a lot of these veteran quarterbacks that did not play at all during the preseason have looked pretty rusty in the first week. It's almost like, they had 4 preseason games before, and it seemed like all of them normally played that 4th preseason game. But now we're at 3 preseason games, and they're like, oh, we don't even need to play in the preseason. And then week 1 is their preseason game. And
I 100% agree. I was thinking the same thing, especially when I see Matthew Stafford that first game of the year. I thought, man, if anybody needed a practice game, it was him, because he just was not into it.
And definitely. And I think we can talk about that some more as we come into our next segment, which will be studs and duds. Josh, I'm going to let you take over for this segment, because I know you did a lot of work on this.
So what we're going to be talking about is studs. So I'm going to give the top 5 performers from each category. And then we're going to talk about the duds, the ones that didn't do quite as well. And then another little segment with overachievers. And I looked up overachievers in the dictionary, and it says one who achieves success over and above the expected level, which is what some of these guys done. So basically, these players done a lot better than where they were ranked or their ADP. And these are the players that's going to win your leagues, the ones that you didn't think was going to be as good, but end up being, great players that you can play every week.
Exactly.
So we'll get into this real quick. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. Studs, number one, Patrick Mahomes.
Definitely.
Mahomes is really good at football from what we found out.
Yeah.
And he made everybody forget about Tyreek Hill being there.
Yep.
He never missed a beat.
Nope.
I wonder if some of this ain't an Arizona team whose defense is terrible. We'll find out this week. Whenever I think they play the Raiders.
Yep.
So the Raiders might do the same thing. But he had 360 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yep.
I mean,
he definitely made me eat my words on thinking Justin Herbert was going to be the number one quarterback. And heck, after Thursday night, I thought Josh Allen was going to be the number one quarterback, and Patrick.
Well,
Mahomes,
this is the first week. I think Herbert's going to have a good year, and by the time it's over with, we'll talk about this again because
definitely.
I really think Arizona's defense is not good.
Yep. Definitely their secondary is definitely not. But anyway, you can go ahead and go on. So
you mentioned Josh Allen. He's number 2. I mean, he started off the NFL season with a bang, man.
Yep.
It was fun to watch. 297 yards, 56 rushing yards, and 4 total touchdowns. Man, this guy is a beast.
Yep. Honestly,
number 3.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I would say honestly, he just looked like he was having fun out there playing backyard ball the whole game.
He's always looked like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not saying he didn't look like that toward the end of last year for sure, and all of last year, but this year to me, it just looked like it clicked. Like there was no coverage, no scenario. He had an answer for everything, and I remember that's how Peyton Manning looked. That's how Rodgers has looked. I mean, Breeze used to look like that. And whenever you see a quarterback that just there's nothing that you can do to stop him, I mean, that's when you've ascended to that, that real superstar level, which, and Mahomes looked the same way. And I think there's going to be a couple quarterbacks that are going to look like that this year. And we're going to be talking about them a fair amount as we go throughout the year, as long as they stay healthy.
So Allen, I mean, he looked like the best player on the field.
Definitely.
By far. I mean, he just wheeled his way into the end zone there on that run, Let's go to number 3. And this one is one that you didn't expect to be on there. But Carson Wentz.
Yep.
313 passing yards, 12 rushing yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, there was a lot of people had a lot of questions about Wentz, changing teams. And, who knows if this will be able to, do this every week. But, man, he looked good. But he looked good and he looked bad because, then he threw, 2 interceptions?
2 interceptions, that's right.
I mean, with Wentz, it's like a roller coaster ride.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if he's your quarterback and he puts up points, it don't matter. You just want those points to win your games. So if he can get you them points, then hey. And I imagine he's probably nobody had him going into the season. I imagine he was picked up. People who had Trey Lance or some of these other ones that didn't do quite as good.
I'm sure he
probably got picked up.
I'm sure he put up a lot of points on several people's bench this past week.
No doubt. Number 4, and it's somebody that we both talked about last week.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts, 243 passing yards, 90 rushing yards. He's going to be big all year. I don't think he had a Or did he run one in?
He ran one in. Didn't pass for one, but ran one in, and which he ran 17 times for 90 yards and a touchdown. I mean, exactly what we thought he, was going to do.
And 17 yards seems like a lot for somebody that's got to play the whole year.
Oh yeah,
as a quarterback. That's just. We'll see if he stays healthy.
Yep.
But I did see the one rush that he made and scored on.
Yeah.
Nobody touched him.
Yep.
I mean, how do you not think he's fixing to not? I mean, you got to know he's running the ball in.
Yep.
I don't understand how he was not touched into the end zone. But anyway, he's going to be big this year. Number 5. I picked him preseason as the MVP. You know you're big on him too. Yep. Justin Herbert, 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. Going to have a good year. He's got a big game tonight. Yep. We're going to see just how good he is.
That's right.
Now we're going to go to overachievers.
Yep.
And number 1 on that list is our man down here in New Orleans, Jameis Winston.
Yep.
269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 9 rushes. Now, most of that was probably the fourth quarter.
Yep.
But, he put up some numbers. He was another one that was probably on somebody's bench.
Yep.
But, hey, if you got him on your bench, at least you got somebody you can fill in with.
And you don't have to worry about playing against him.
Yeah, that's right. Number 2, Marcus Mariota. In the same game, he was 215 yards, 17 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yep.
I didn't realize until I looked at that he had 72 yards rushing.
Yep, and he looked like Marcus Mariota of old, running around and made it really hard on the Saints defense. Honestly, I think he made them look worse than they really are. A lot of people had them projected as the number 1 defense coming in this year, and I mean, we couldn't get off the field on 3rd down to save our life, at least in the first 3 quarters for sure, and it had a lot to do with him. I think he's going to have a bigger, if he can stay healthy, that's been the thing about him his whole career, really, if he can stay healthy. But I think if he is, that Atlanta's going to let him play, and I think he can put up some points for some people, especially if you're a Dak Prescott
Saints,
or something like that.
Yeah. The Saints, if there's ever a quarterback that hurt the Saints, it's a running quarterback.
That's right.
Over the years, when they've had trouble with a quarterback, it's usually been a running quarterback. And he did give them fits at times. The thing about it, does Atlanta really want to win? Yeah. I think they want the number 1 pick.
Well, I don't think they're going to have to. I don't think they have to try too hard, because their defense is still. Even though we had some problems against them, their defense is still going to be struggling most of the year, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's see. Number 4 is my man. I've talked up, Mr. Kirk Cousins.
Yep. You skipped number
270. Oh, did I?
Yep. Number 3, Tannehill.
Oh, Tannehill. Yeah.
Yep.
Ryan Tannehill.
Then we'll get to Captain Kirk.
Okay. Ryan Tannehill, 266, 2 touchdowns with 7 rushes. That's a good game for him.
Yep.
But they didn't really run the ball as well as they did last year, and
they lost one of their key components in Taylor Lewan on their offensive line, and that he's been one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL for years. And they say that he's been an anchor for that O-line, and one of the main reasons that they've been as good at running the ball as they are. And he left this year. Honestly, I don't even know what team he went to, but I know he's not there anymore. And that was a big expectation with a lot of analysts this year, was they won't be able to run the ball quite as well as they have in the past. It doesn't mean they're not going to try, but that could mean more throwing opportunities and scrambling opportunities for Ryan Tannehill. And maybe, if they continue to not be as good as they expect to be, maybe Malik Willis in the future.
Yeah. And being behind in games, where you have to throw the ball more.
That's right.
And we'll go to number 4. I'll say his name again. Kirk Cousins.
That's right.
I've said it about 1 million times on these podcasts. 277 with 2 touchdowns. And I really think they took the foot off the pedal towards the end. He could have had like a monster game.
Definitely.
And he's going to have some.
Yep.
This offense, I mean, they come out of the gate clicking on all cylinders. Unlike a lot of these other teams, I just feel like they are ready to do something this year. And I think they're a scary team to have to play.
Definitely.
All right, now let's go to the duds. And number 1, Aaron Rodgers did not even have 200 yards passing, 0 touchdowns. I mean, if you look at all the starters statistically, he was the worst starter, I believe, in the league, if I'm not mistaken, for week 1. And who would ever thought MVP the last 2 years? Now, we all knew, though, the wide receiver situation, and it was going to be bad. But, man, I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
But you know, it's kind of deja vu all over again because, I mean, some people might remember, especially listen to this podcast, being Saints fans last year, exact same thing. Now, he still had Devontae Adams in, and his offensive line was healthy. But same thing happened last year. I'm not saying that he's going to bounce back like he did, but he's definitely got a matchup this week against Chicago to bounce back like he needs to. And poor Chicago, they have to face him coming off that loss. And I think if anybody's going to be looking to come out and blow the doors off a game, I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers this week.
I totally agree. I think he's going to have a big game. I mean, through the years, he has owned Chicago Bears. So, I mean, I think he's going to continue. And another thing with that, if Walker doesn't drop that one that fell right in his hands.
You
know, he's got over 200.
Yeah.
Watson, not Walker. Watson. That's right. If he don't miss that ball that hit right in his hands.
Oh yeah.
That's a touchdown, and his numbers look a lot different, and the game probably looks a little different too.
And it's so cliche, but I mean, that's exactly what he was talking about in the preseason, and then bam, first play right there, you know.
All right. Number 2, I hate to put him on here, but I'm going to. Dak Prescott. I mean, we know a lot of the reason his numbers were bad was because he was injured. But before he got hurt, I mean, I didn't think he played good.
He didn't. He was missing open wide receivers. I mean, if anything will tell you about it, it's CeeDee Lamb had 11 targets. And you would think with 11 targets, probably had a decent game. No, he caught 2 of them. Probably because only
11.
2 of them were catchable. I honestly don't know that stat. I'm just kind of saying that as somebody that watched. But, 2 for 11 and 29 yards. I mean, there's nothing else you can say about that. And I think you're exactly right. He wasn't playing well to begin with. And even if he didn't get hurt, I don't think they win that game anyway, you know.
Well, I think he made bad throws because he was trying to force it in. Whenever he was throwing it to him, he'd have like 3 guys on him, and he was trying to put it in there. He had no way of catching the ball in some of those. But I'm still going to put him at number 2 because that's where he finished, below those other guys. Number 3, Mac Jones. 213, 1 touchdown. I mean, that offense just looked terrible.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, what do they expect? You got 2 defensive coordinators that are running the offense. Pretty much. That's, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's a reason they're defensive coordinators, because if they were really good at running offense, they would have been offensive coordinators. But anyway, it is what it is. Poor Mac Jones, I would like to think that Bill Belichick, one of the best there ever was to coach, would be able to right the ship. But they might be one of those teams that are just gonna, say it is what it is this year and just kind of hope for a good draft pick next year. But I mean,
it was bound to eventually happen where they had a bad year.
That's right.
And number 4, Matthew Stafford. Like we said, he looked rusty. Didn't look good. 240 with a touchdown. I think a lot of this has to do too with missing Big Whitworth on that line. Because they were busting through that line.
I completely agree. Now that is not to say Buffalo is no slouch on the D line. So I mean, it's not like you had Atlanta's defensive line or Jacksonville's out there busting through. But whenever you're playing probably the best or one of the best D lines in the league, it's going to show up whenever you lose a vet like Whitworth that kind of he anchored that line, and it definitely showed that they're working out some kinks. I think they'll get it right. I think Stafford and them will get it right, but they're definitely working through something.
Well, I think he had tunnel vision too, because he was looking at nobody but Cooper Kupp.
Well, that's probably the only person he had any chemistry with, because he didn't play in the preseason.
Well, he definitely feels comfortable with him, and who wouldn't? You throw it anywhere close, he's catching it.
And hey, he was open like every time too. So I mean, what can you say?
Yeah. And it's good if you're Cooper Kupp owners, which I am in 2 leagues. Yep. It looks like it's going to be another year like last year.
Yep.
And number 5, the last one, I got Trey Lance. It's kind of hard, like we talked about. He played in a monsoon. I mean, you can almost throw this game out, and we'll see what happens this week. But he did have a terrible game. 164 yards, 54 rushes, and he had 13 attempts. I mean, at rushing, and only had 54 and a touchdown. So, not a big game, but let's wait before we talk too much about him and see what happens next week.
That's right.
Let's go over to running backs.
Yep.
Let's see, studs, man.
Yep.
This one here.
Yep.
I mean, to me, he was the biggest question mark going into the year. And there's no question anymore. Man, he looked good. Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
He's going to end up being the steal of the draft.
Definitely, as late as he was going, if he continues to stay healthy and do what he did, I mean,
he looked and on them runs, he looked strong. He looked good.
I dare to say he could put up CMC McCaffrey numbers, because
he looked like McCaffrey out there.
He did. Well, I remember him looking like that when he first came in the league, and
his rookie year. Yeah,
I try not to, because it happens a lot with fantasy football. You draft somebody and they get hurt, or they just have a terrible season, and you get burned by them, and then you try, and then it's like seared into your mind, and then you go to draft and you're like, nope, you're not going to fall for it then. But you can't really think like that, because when a player of his talent is healthy, he's going to do exactly what he did, and he is. And I drafted him last year whenever he did, because I had high hopes for him coming off that injury. I thought he was going to be back, and he stunk it up. And and I remember, like, man, I'm not going to fall for this again. And I had the opportunity to draft him now, and I didn't take any slouches that I think I might have took Swift over him, which wasn't a terrible call, but he still didn't put up Saquon Barkley numbers. And hopefully it won't come back to bite me, but he looked like he's back. And if you drafted him late, you definitely got a bargain.
Well, I mean, just say you got him in the 3rd round. You probably got a running back in the 1st round.
Yep.
And a good wide receiver come around. I mean, man, you're stacked.
The way he played, if you didn't draft him with your first 5 picks, you drafted him later than he should have went. I mean, that's all you can say. Honestly, you probably say if you didn't draft him the first 3 picks, then he went later than he's playing like,
Well, another good thing about him, the team looked better.
Yep.
Number 1, and I think they got a really good coach there.
Brian Daboll looks like he's going to right that ship finally. I know if you're any Giants fans out there, like, reminiscing, it wasn't too long ago that they won a Super Bowl, and maybe he can right that ship and get them back relevant. I know the door is open in that conference with the Cowboys looking like they did, and we'll see how it goes.
I just don't know. I just don't know about the quarterback situation there. That's the only thing. Jones didn't look bad, but I don't know if he takes it to the playoffs. But we'll see. But they definitely got a running back. They got a stud with Saquon, it looks like.
Definitely.
Number 2, DeAndre Swift. Like you said, you had him.
I thought 2 was Jonathan Taylor.
Well,
or did the points? Let me pull it up.
The points were, I think, actually Swift was a little bit higher.
Okay.
Because of the
Either
receiving
way.
yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. DeAndre Swift, 144, 31 reception yards and a touchdown. One thing about him, he did have a big 50-yard run that inflated that. But still, I mean, even if you take that away, he had a really good game.
Well, that's what you get with him,
That's what you get, but bust off a big play.
Yep.
He looks like one of the best running backs in the league right now. The only problem with him is health, and he's already, got questionable. But another thing about him, it looks like Williams is going to steal some of the touchdowns. He's going to get some of the end zone work, and he will get some carries.
Yep. And as a Swift owner, I'm fine with that as long as he keeps getting the catches. I mean, he's gonna do his thing. He's gonna bust those big runs. I don't think Williams is gonna get all the goal line work, but also does it factor in, with him going back and saying he hurt his ankle in that second quarter, does that factor into Jamal Williams getting those goal line carries?
Yeah.
So that could have been something with that,
You don't see a whole lot of backs that are just the number one stud back anymore like you used to. So if he's getting 60 to 70%, hey, you can live with that because he's going to bust off them big runs like he did, and he's going to get his touchdown, and he's definitely going to be the receiving back. So,
definitely.
Hey, you got to be happy if you, from what you're saying, if you drafted him. Number 3, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you picked him number 1 for a reason, and he's going to deliver. You're going to get close to 100, maybe a touchdown just about every week.
That's
161 yards, a touchdown, 14 receptions. He's a stud, best running back in the league last year, and he could very easily be it again this year.
Definitely.
Number 4, another kind of a surprise here, but then again, he had a good year last year. But Cordell Patterson, I think the biggest surprise for me is who he done it on. The Saints haven't gave up a 100-yard rusher, and I can't even remember the last time.
It's been a long time.
They're typically one of the better defense against the run, and he was running over folks. I mean, he is a big bruising back, and he's hard to tackle, but man, 120 yards rushing, 16 receptions, and a touchdown. I mean, he looked like a stud.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know that he'll. He started the year off like this last year, and he kind of fell off at the end. I don't know if that happens this year, but hey, you got to be happy. Another one where you drafted him. And number 5, I have 2 that are almost identical with numbers. Kareem Hunt, he was not happy going into camp. He was even wondering if he's going to be traded, and he steps in there. His ADP dropped. People got him probably lower than he should have. And then he comes out and shows you the kind of player he is. 70 yards total and 2 touchdowns. And with Cleveland, I think that's what it's going to be. You're going to see the 2 running backs, doing their thing on offense, and then they're going to play hard deep. So you got to be happy if you got him probably where you did. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man, 2 touchdowns from him, 42 yards rushing, 32 receiving. Him and Kareem Hunt almost had the exact same numbers. That was kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't real big on him, and who's to say that ain't his best game of the year? Because I remember his rookie year.
That's exactly right.
The first game, I had him, and I'm like, oh my God, I done got this guy. He's gonna tear the league up, and he never repeated that. I don't think he's ever repeated it.
Nope. But hey.
Well, from what I've seen with Kansas City, they're going to spread the ball around. There's going to be a lot of people get touches. So, hey, there's going to be times when it's his day and he's going to get those touchdowns and those yards. You just got to make sure you got him in the lineup when he does.
I think he's going to be a pretty decent RB2, and if not a solid flex, depending on where you drafted him.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be a mainstay. Flex. Yeah, as long as he stays healthy, especially with that offense.
Yeah, they're going to put up some numbers this year.
Yep.
Overachievers for the running backs. Number one, James Robinson. He's not going away. He showed that he comes off the injury. People was big on ETN coming in, and he showed that, look, I'm still the number one here. 66 yards, a touchdown, and he also caught a touchdown. Two touchdowns. I mean, hey, I got him really late, and I didn't play him, but I've got him there if I need him. And who's to say that if he keeps this up, I don't use him as a flex, or whenever I have somebody out, But if their offense continues to play pretty good, where they can actually run the ball, he's going to be pretty decent this year.
Well, I think a lot of us were trying to wait and see how he came back off that injury as well, and he looked great, and hopefully he'll continue to look great. And I think Doug Peterson's going to have that offense looking good. I don't know how many games they're going to win because of their defense, but I think they're going to put up some points and some good fantasy stats, which would be great for fantasy managers for sure. Yeah,
I said going into the year that was probably the best hire as far as coaches in the NFL this past year.
Definitely. I'm still trying to figure out how he went. What it was, a year or a year and a half without a job right after he won the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, yeah. With a team that probably shouldn't have won the Super Bowl.
And I'm trying to figure out how you as an organization win the Super Bowl and then like 2 years later, maybe it was a year later, fire your head coach. But hey, Jacksonville's got him now, and I think he's going to be there for a while.
Yep. Number two, Dontrell Hilliard, a Tulane boy. I just found that out when I was looking some stuff up.
That's right.
61 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. To be honest, I think it's kind of a fluke.
Yep. I was going to say, not to rain on the parade, but I don't see this happening very, very often. I could be wrong, but I don't see it happening very often.
I wouldn't run out there and pick him up.
Definitely. I guess in the deepest of leagues, you can pick him up, put him on the bench, and see what happens. But I would not get my hopes up for sure.
No. Number 3, Miles Sanders, 96 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 receiving yards on 2 catches. I actually at the last minute put him in my flex position.
There you go.
And it paid off.
Yeah.
I got him late. He was one of them that was sitting there and just sit there for like a round and a half.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, I could use an extra running back.
That's those values right there that can win your league for you.
And actually, man, he looked like he could, be a starter for me.
He's always looked great to me. I think it's just how they do their running backs in Philadelphia, playing 3 or 4 of them. I really feel like if he ever got at least let me see what his share was, but like a 70 to 80% share, I feel like he could be a mainstay at RB2. And they just don't ever give him that, let's see, his snap share was 52%. And he,
well, hey,
and
that ain't bad.
That's not bad.
On an offense that's going to be really good.
That's right. So, and I think honestly, that's probably his floor as far as a snap share. I don't see him getting less than that unless he's injured or something. But
that's the big thing with him though, is injuries.
That's right. But he's got a solid offensive line, and his quarterback looks like he's taking a step forward. I think that's a solid draft pick for you, and I think he's going to be on this on our list and column a fair amount in the future.
Yeah, for a third running back, it's not bad.
Definitely.
Number 4, AJ Dillon.
Yep.
I actually talked about him, and you liked him last week.
Yep.
He was my start. He actually out-touched Aaron Jones.
Yep.
Which was a kind of a surprise, 15 to on rushing. He had 45 yards with a touchdown, the only Packers touchdown. And he had 5 catches for 46, so him and Aaron Jones basically got the same amount of catches just about, but he ran the ball more. Man, he's another one, man, that where you drafted him,
well,
he's going to be really good for you.
Yep.
Number 5, I got Darrell Henderson. Nobody knew that he was going to be the starter until he stepped on the field in the first quarter. He ended up with 47 yards, 5 for 26 receiving. Most people drafted him as a backup.
Yep.
So now they got a starting running back. I picked him at the very end because I had Cam Akers, and now I'll be starting Henderson, it looks like.
And that's one of those situations where, what I always call it, locking up a backfield. If you're ever in doubt of who might be, if it's a good offense or a good running team, and you're ever in doubt of, who might be starting or if there's going to be a timeshare, it never hurts to draft both of them. And then you don't have to worry. And, if one of them
gets hurt,
that's right.
You got a sure enough starter then.
You take up that extra spot on your bench, but you got a peace of mind that you got, the one that's going to be the man there and his backup, his handcuff. So I've always been a big proponent of locking up a backfield in drafts, especially a good offensive team like the Rams, because Sean McVay's they're going to score points and they're going to have opportunity, and you can't go wrong with that.
Well, I actually think too, Cam Akers is going to get some touches this week.
I do too.
I think the Rams end up being up pretty big, and he probably plays a lot in the fourth quarter. And if he he do what they want him to do. He's probably going to start to pick up more carries through the year. Something happened because the coach wasn't happy with him for some reason. I don't know exactly what went on, but he's going to work his way in there, I believe. But I still think Henderson's going to be the starter, the early down back. And let's see, we'll go to Doug's for running backs. And we just said his name, number 1 on the list, Cam Akers. Man, so many people had him in their lineup thinking, he was talked about as being like one of the, big players this year that everybody wanted. And man, who would have ever thought that first game was just crazy. You had him not touching the ball, not even stepping on the field hardly. Allen Robinson, all over the field looked like he was wide open. They never throwed him the ball. That was just a crazy first game.
I will say I did hear one of the analysts talking earlier this week about that situation. And some of them were speculating that possibly Cam Akers might not have been 100%, and they didn't even intend to play him until the rookie that was behind him. Let me see. I think it's Kyron. Let's see his name. Yeah, Kyron Williams. He ended up hurting his ankle with a high ankle sprain, I think right before the game, maybe in warmups, and ended up getting hurt and wasn't able to dress or wasn't able to play. And they ended up activating Cam Akers kind of in a backup role, similar to what he did, just because they didn't have the depth. But so that's what there was some speculation of how this issue happened, because he was kind of banged up coming into the week and ended up getting in some practices, and that's what there was some speculation saying that they were thinking that he wasn't ready to go. And the only reason he played what little he did was because they didn't have the depth ready, because the rookie got hurt right before the game. So just to keep that in mind, I mean, that he's been a heavy trade target that I've been hearing about a lot of people saying to go get, because he did so poorly and you can almost get him cheap. Heck, I've even heard about some people saying they were dropping him. And
well, they're so mad.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think he's out of juice yet. Not from what we've seen from him in the past. I'll look for him to bounce back eventually, some point in the next couple weeks.
I feel like middle of the year they're probably splitting carries.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 2, David Montgomery. Man, he looked bad. 17 carries for only 26 yards, 3 catches, 24. But I mean, it was terrible weather, but still. And you know, coming in here, I kind of expected him to kind of have a down year.
I did as well.
And he actually got outplayed by Herbert, who's going to take a lot of his carries before the year's over, I believe. If not, even, you know, he could even be the starter before the year's over with. Well, I've never been a big David Montgomery guy anyway.
Me neither.
Because the only reason he ever done anything was volume, but man, he never really had any big runs. I've kind of stayed away from him through the years.
A lot of the analysts think that Khalil Herbert's going to take over that backfield before the year's over, and what he did was pretty impressive last week. Let me pull it up here. But people need to remember they have the worst offensive line in the NFL. I think that they're listed as the bottom of the barrel in offensive line. And Khalil Herbert, 9 carries for 45 yards. I mean, with that in that mess, like you were talking about, he scored a touchdown, averaged 5 yards per carry, you know, and I don't think you could ask for any more. That just shows to the talent that he has. And you got, you know, David Montgomery over here, 17 carries for 26 yards, you know, 1.5 yards per carry. So, I mean, if you got David Montgomery, I don't think you could trade him for much now, but you might be wanting to get out from behind that rock as soon as possible.
Or if he does have a big game this week, I would probably try to get rid of him.
No doubt.
All right. Let's see. Number 3, Tony Pollard.
Yep.
You know, the injury to Dak probably had something to do with it. It was just a bad game for Dallas. Yep. A lot of people expected him to outplay Elliott this year. You know, and he might, because I feel like Dallas is going to have to pass it more, and he's probably going to be the one they put in, you know, to pass it. So, you know, he could, you know, end up being better than Elliott before the year's out. But right now, I don't really want a part of either one of them unless I just have nothing else.
Completely agree.
Number 4, Alvin Kamara, and he didn't have a big game, but we found out later that he had a rib injury that probably affected him more than we knew during the game. You know, I expect him, you know, if he gets healthy to end up being a lot better. But he was nine rushes for 39 yards, 3 catches for 7. That's not a typical Alvin Kamara game. And we really needed him in that game, you know, because we couldn't get nothing going. We put Hill in there and got that touchdown that probably saved the game in the first half.
That's right.
But that's enough about that. Number 5, Ramondre Stevenson. Man, there was a lot of people talking him up. You know, in the offseason. And I kept thinking, you know, this is not going to be his show. This is going to be a split, you know. I think I even said something on the last podcast how I thought Harris, you know, being so late that, you know, he might end up, you know, being the better one of the two. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the reason a lot of them, you know, it's always supposed to be a split, but they were saying Ramondre was supposed to get more of the catches because of Ty Montgomery's injury and everything. But Ty Montgomery all of a sudden was active, ended up playing in the game, and then got all the targets.
Got the only touchdown, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
well, you know, now he's out for the year, though.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, I mean, who else they got to throw it? They got to throw it to Ramondre now. So we'll talk about him here in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to, keep our eyes on him because, like you said, he might end up rising.
That's right.
And I think that's all for the running backs.
That's right.
Wide receiver, studs, man, and what a stud he is, Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
Who I think is going to be the best player in fantasy football this year.
He definitely looked like it this weekend.
Man, he just looked like you was talking about earlier, like they're playing backyard football.
Yep.
I mean, he just runs, and it's like he just leaves everybody, and he's wide open. It's crazy how he does. But I was big on the Vikings offense this year, and there's a reason why. I mean, they're going to have a great year. And then you got behind him, I think in tier one, you have Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. And I think they're probably the best two, maybe fantasy football players, and definitely the two top fantasy football wide receivers. They had both had monster games.
Yep.
Jefferson had 184 and 2 touchdowns. He had well over 100 yards in the first half. And I think, like we said earlier, they took the foot off the pedal. He could have had over 200 easy.
Yep.
And then Cooper Kupp ended up with 128 with a touchdown on 15 targets, and he caught 13 of them. I mean, efficient as it gets right there. Number 3, Devontae Adams, 141 with a touchdown on 10 catches. It looks like it don't matter who's throwing him the ball. He is just good, and when you're good, you're going to make.
That's right.
You're going to make the catches. I mean, Carr's going to have fun with him this year.
That's right.
And I actually in DFS think that Carr and him is a really good play this week.
I completely agree. Yep.
A big because they're playing Arizona.
That's right.
I believe who was torched by Kansas City.
The worst pass defense in the league.
I will be putting them two in as a stack on a DFS team.
Yep.
Number 4, Jamar Chase.
Yep.
129 with a touchdown, 10 catches. We kind of knew that was going to happen. And then number 5, I got 2 that was pretty even.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs, 8 catches, 122 yards and a touchdown. He made the defense look terrible.
I'm pretty sure Jalen Ramsey attempted to cover him for most of the game, and we got to lean heavily on the attempted part because he didn't really cover him that much.
Well, I think Josh Allen was there to prove a point, and he did it.
Definitely.
And then Michael Pittman, 9 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. I mean, both them pretty even. I think so on this, you could just about go down the list of how they were ranked, in these top 5, and they all delivered. So you got to be pretty happy about that.
Definitely.
And I know he wasn't in the top 5, but I got to say something about AJ Brown, who had a great game.
Yeah. Yep.
155 and a touchdown. Hurts threw him the ball 13 times. He caught 10 of them. Man, they got something special going on right there. And that's another stack I think you could put in just about any week. Overachievers.
You said, he had 155, but he did not have a touchdown. If he would have had a touchdown.
You're right. I put he needed a touchdown.
Yeah. If he would have,
that's why he wasn't in the top 5.
He would have been in the top 5, I think, for sure.
He would have been in the top 2.
Yeah,
probably.
But didn't have that touchdown. But I don't think. Yeah, I think he's going to have that opportunity every week, though. The way they look.
He's going to have a touch. Yeah, he'll probably have one this week. You're right. I had he needed a touchdown to be up there.
You're good.
Let's see. Overachievers. Our Saints guy here, Michael Thomas, didn't do anything the first half. Fourth quarter, it's like he turned into a different person. You could just see it on his face and his eyes. Man, and he found the end zone 2 times. Pretty much him and Jameis won us that ball game at the end. And you love to see that as a Saints fan.
Hopefully that carries on over to this week.
I hope so. But it just looked like he just turned into a different person there, and just and we're looking forward to seeing what happens this week. 2, Devin Duvernay,
Yep.
For Baltimore, 4 for 54 and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
I don't know that that'll happen every week, but
I think this is another Don. Now, I do think he has a little bit more water to carry than Dontrell Hilliard. I don't know
I
if
agree
he's
with that.
somebody that I'm going to be running out there to start at my flex this week, but I think they're going to try to get him the ball. He's kind of one of those gadget guys, kind of like a Debo Samuel light. He's real fast, real bulky, wide receiver that can run the ball out of the backfield. He went to Texas. And I remember him in Texas. He was one of those guys that would run Wildcat. They would run him on an end around. Like, he was just one of those athletes that could play all over the field. And I think they're going to utilize him a little bit more this year now that they let Marquise Brown go. And Rashad Bateman's going to step into that role. And I think they're going to try to do some stuff with Devin Duvernay. I don't know if you're going to be able to rely on it every week, but I think he could be one of those guys, kind of like a Taysom Hill a little bit, where he goes out there every now and then, has a big week. And if you play it right, maybe this is a week that you need him to do that.
Yep. Number 3 is a guy kind of same way. Robbie Anderson, 5 for 102 and a touchdown. He's one of them that he'll give you a couple of games a year pretty good, and then you don't want to play him the other ones. You just got to hit on the right game.
That's right.
Roll the dice, I guess. Number 4, Jahan Dotson.
Yep.
The best rookie performance of the week, I guess.
Yep.
5 for 40 with 2 touchdowns. And number 5, LSU boy, Sterling Shepard, 71 yards. He one of them was like I think a big play for like 50-something yards or something. So
that's right.
I don't,
well,
kind of a busted play.
Outside of, Saquon in that offense, nobody's probably going to be for sure every week. But I will say, people probably forget, but Sterling Shepard and Daniel Jones had a good connection a couple years ago. And, I remember a stretch of like 6-7 games where Sterling Shepard would go like 6 for 70 or in a touchdown here and there, or 6 for 90 or 7 for 80, like every week, and I think they could get back to that again if he's healthy and they got a better offensive coach. I mean, he could be somebody to watch out for, maybe somebody to throw at the end of the bench in a deeper league, or even, if you just got a spot and nobody else good's left out there on the waiver wire. He could be somebody that could be a regular, plug and play at your flex for you whenever you need him during bye weeks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you just don't have anybody else, you're just looking for somebody, you never know. He could have a game like this and help your team. You got to kind of have a guy like that, throughout the year. And Duds, Devonta Smith, 0 catches, man.
Yep.
And what's crazy is AJ Brown had 10 catches?
That's right.
And he had 0.
Yeah,
he was thrown to a couple of times, I think. But last year he never really turned out to be last year what everybody thought he was going to be.
I mean,
I actually had him last year, and I think I ended up dropping him.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go out and drop him yet, because Jalen Hurts looks like they're getting better. And AJ Brown, he doesn't have to worry about getting the number 1 coverage, option, because AJ Brown's going to get that. But he does look like he's the 3rd option behind AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert now. But I mean, if that offense is as good as it's starting to look like, and Hurts is taking a step forward, he could be a flex option for you. He's just not going to be that wide receiver 2 you might have been thinking you were drafting.
Well, we all knew going into the game they was going to force feed AJ Brown and make him happy right off the bat.
And they ended up winning. So
and they won. Yeah,
that's right.
Number 2, CD Lamb, 2 of 11 targets for 29 yards. That got hurt, but still, I mean, you throw to 11 times, but like we talked about, some of them passes might not have been catchable, but
that's right.
some drafts he went like back into the first round, early to the late second round.
I'm not gonna lie. He was at the end of my wide receivers I was looking for. I went running back heavy in a lot of my drafts, and he was one of the wide receivers I was looking for a wide receiver one. I never got him because he was going before I ever got a chance, and I'm glad I didn't now. But I mean, there was a lot of high expectations that they were thinking he was going to be up there with, Jamar Chase, Diggs, and Pittman this year. And I don't think that's going to come to fruition now for sure. Maybe it does later on in the year. Him and Dak get back on the same page and their offense gets going a little bit. But I mean, at least for the next 3 weeks, I would temper my expectations.
Well, with him, I think for him to be good, some of these other wide receivers are going to get back healthy, because if they're going to focus in on him, they're not going to let him get the ball. I mean, it looked like there was 2 or 3 on him every time the ball was thrown towards him.
Yep.
He needs Gallup to get back, spread the field out.
Well,
and that's going to happen. But I have him on one team, and I just don't think he's going to be what everybody was thinking.
And honestly, with their offensive line issues, I mean, defenses are probably going to be able to get some kind of a pass rush by only bringing 4 defensive linemen. What does that do? That leaves way more people out for coverage. And, like you just said, where are you going to shade your coverage toward? You're going to shade it toward CD Lamb. And it's going to be rough for them.
Yep. Number 3, Mike Williams.
Yep.
He was 2 for 10 targets.
Yep.
And after Allen went down, everybody expected, man, he's fixing to go off.
Yep.
And he just never got nothing going.
Well,
and Herbert had, close to 300 yards. And
he did.
Man, where did all that go? It just.
Yep. Honestly, they were talking about, I think they said 6 or 7 people on the Chargers had 4 catches, including Williams. And that's where it all went. They all had 4 catches with so many yards, some bigger than others. I know Gerald Everett had like 4 catches for 50 yards or something and touchdown, something like that. So, I mean, that's where it went. But I will say, just to update people as we're watching, I mean, I'm sure you're watching too, but I'm watching Thursday Night Football, looking at the stats here. He has 5 catches for 76 yards on 6 targets, and that was in the first quarter. So I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. And you know what, that spreading the ball around, that just tells me that Herbert's a great quarterback. He's going through his progressions. He's looking for the open man, and he's going to have a big year this year.
That's right.
Number 4, Allen Robinson. We talked about that. I mean, it was just crazy. And we'll have to keep an eye on that, because I don't know if something's there that, we just have to watch. I mean, I expect him to get better, but who knows?
What I've heard and seen this week since that game is that this is one of those situations that shows that they did not play together in the preseason, because there were several opportunities where Allen Robinson was open, but Stafford either didn't look and give him enough time to get open, where if he had played with him enough in a game time situation, he would know how long it would take for him to make that move on that route. You know what I'm saying? But there was, I think somebody calculated on one of the shows I think it was 8 times that he was open that Stafford just missed him. And Stafford
was, injured with the elbow too. So not only did he not play in the preseason games, he missed a lot of practice. And, it showed in that game.
I think they're going to get it back together, and I'm hoping he is. I mean, I drafted him. I only drafted him once because he went earlier than I could get him in several of my leagues. But I was definitely looking for him at my wide receiver 2 in several leagues, and I've got him in one, and I'm sitting him this week just to see. But I have a feeling he's going to bounce back. I want to put him in there, but I've got another option that's going to be pretty good. That I really like this week that I'm going to plug in there, but I think he's going to be okay. I think if people just hang in there, he's going to bounce back, and I think he'll be a solid wide receiver 2 before the year's over.
Number 5, Woods, 1 catch, 13 yard. Man.
Yeah,
Would,
I think you cut out just a little bit. Robert Woods is who you said there, right?
Yeah, Robert Woods. Yeah, he didn't do much.
Yeah, honestly,
and
he was. Go ahead.
Kenny still had a good game too, and he still didn't have but 13 yards.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, I drafted him in one league that I was needing wide receiver help late, and he was one of those guys, like you said, that was like Miles Sanders. They kind of sat there for a couple rounds, and I was just sitting there looking at him like I really didn't have him on my draft board, and I really wasn't sure if I was going to like draft him or not. And I drafted him, and I actually ended up I was watching. I didn't start him, but I was thinking about it for this week, and I was sitting there watching as that game unfolded, and I mean, he played. Let me pull it up. I'm pretty sure he played, let's see, 71% of the snaps, and he got 2 targets with 1 catch. And the next 3 wide receivers on that team played 50% or less snaps, and all of them had more targets and catches than Robert Woods. The next 3 wide receivers on that team. I mean, if there's somebody that I would, and I'll be honest, I did the knee jerk thing. There was somebody that I'm going to talk about later on in this pod that I dropped him and I picked up because I don't know if it gets better. I think he is still getting, I mean, he's not going to be that bad every week, obviously, but I don't know if he's going to be somebody that I'm going to end up playing in my lineup. By the year's end. I think he's strictly brought in. I think he's brought in to help. He's what few people know. He's the best run blocking wide receiver, I think, in the league. If I'm not mistaken, or at least the last time he played, he was. So if that still holds true, then I think that's why he was primarily brought in, was to run block and kind of teach some of these younger wide receivers on the team.
Yeah, and he's another one, like we talked about a couple of the others. He's kind of getting on up in age a little bit too, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yep, he's 30.
Yeah, that's kind of the age, seems like. Tight end, let's run through these real quick. Studs, Travis Kelce. I mean, you know what you're getting with him.
Yep.
He's about as solid as a fantasy football player as you can have. 121 for a touchdown. I mean, you can pencil him in for some good numbers every week. Number 2, O.J. Howard, 38 yards, 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, you know, he came in at the first half of that game and gave us a touchdown to kind of helped us get through, and we ended up pulling it out at the end. Without that, I don't think we'd have won it.
Yep.
4 rushes for 81 and a touchdown, but one of those was like a big 57-yard run.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of people jumped and ran out and grabbed him off the waiver wire. I didn't. I mean, you don't know when he's going to do that.
Yep.
It could be weeks when he don't do anything.
I completely agree.
I don't really want him on my team. I
As
like him as a
much
football player.
Yep.
But I don't like him as a fantasy player.
Yep.
Number 4, Gerald Everett, 54 yards and a touchdown. I think he's going to have a pretty good year. He might sneak in the top 10 of tight ends this year. He's on a good offense.
That's right.
And with Allen banged up, he's probably going to get some extra catches. Number 5, the Seattle tight ends. Both of them had the exact numbers. Is that not crazy? So Will Dissly was 43 yards and a touchdown, and Kobe Parkinson was 43 yards and a touchdown. I mean, what's the odds of that happening?
Well, and then what are the odds that the guy that they traded for, the number, I think it was 1st or 2nd round draft pick, and Noah Fant, tight end, I don't know if he had a catch. And the
I don't think he did.
The 2nd and 3rd string guys ended up
both having a touchdown.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Actually, I take that back. We said that he had 3 catches for 4 targets, but he only had 16 yards. But
well, it looks like they're going to use their tight ends a lot.
That's right.
Overachievers, Tyler Conklin.
Yep.
Zach Ertz, like we said earlier, he had a touchdown and a 2-point conversion that kind of saved his day. I expect when he gets healthy to be a top 10. We talked about that. And Pat Fryermuth, man, 10 targets. Hey, he might have a big year. 75 yards on 10. If you're getting 10 targets thrown to you, who knows what could happen, Duds, man, Kyle Pitts, 2 catches for 19. He was drafted pretty high this year in most leagues.
And I will say something I noticed during that game, which I was kind of expecting, but I wasn't sure if it would happen, was Marshawn Lattimore was covering him for a large portion of that game.
Yeah.
And
that'll make a difference.
I think that's exactly what happened there, which I think if you're Kyle Pitts owner, I think you're going to be okay. Just hang in there.
Yeah. Mike Gesicki, number 2, 1 catch for 1 yard.
Yep.
And I think right here, you're on a team, you got too many mouths to feed, and he's probably going to be the odd man out when it comes to getting catches. He'll probably be blocking a lot with those running backs catching those short passes.
And also, they were looking to trade him before the season started, and then I don't think they could find any takers for what they had, or maybe his contract. But so they, I mean, I know he's out there playing, but I think they were already looking to move him, and I think he's somebody that could still be traded at some point during the season, even though they're saying now that they're not, and that they want him to play, they're going to work him in, this, that, and the other. But I think the play speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see, number 3, Dawson Knox, 1 for 50, 1 for 5 yards. He'll have some decent games this year.
That's right.
They're gonna spread it around. And number 4, both of us were big on him going into the year, and he put up the humongous goose egg. 0 catches.
Boy, that one, this is the one that really hurt my feelings. I started him in 3 leagues. I've got him in every league that I have a tight end, and my goodness.
Ooh,
oh
man,
yeah,
that hurt.
And
you have a 0 on anybody that hurts you.
It does, and I was fortunate enough to pull out wins in 2 of those 3 leagues. But it honestly, I expected him to at least look at him, but only thing I can think is that they used him to block more because of the situation of the
weather
field and running the ball more. They just didn't throw the ball hardly at all anyway. Nobody on that whole team had hardly any catches. But I'm just hoping it's a blip. We'll see this week, because
this week.
They'll have some better weather.
We'll both be keeping an eye on him this week.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we're through with him. Let's run our picks for the week real quick. At quarterback, and these are we not in the top 5.
That's right. Yep. We're going the starts. We got starts, sits, and sleepers, and all our starts for the quarterback are outside the top 5. And who you got there, Josh?
I got Matthew Stafford. I think he's going to come back with a big week this week. I expect him to. I think he's going to have some big numbers. They're going to play back at home.
Yep.
I expect big things from him this week. What about you?
He's going to knock the rust off. And I got Joe Burrow, Joey B. I think he's going to come out guns a-blazing. Somebody said that he sat in the locker room and didn't shower or change or nothing for, I want to say somebody said a couple hours after the game, because he was so upset with his play. And somebody like him with that competitive edge like that, and then not to mention he's coming out against Dallas. They just lost their quarterback. Their defense is not bad, but I think they're going to be
one of the best defensive players in the league with Micah Parsons.
That's
right. He is a sure enough stud.
I think they're going to be on the field so much, and I think Joe Burrow is going to be amped up. I mean, we know their offense. It's so dynamic. I don't know if any good defense can hold it whenever it's going. And I feel like he's going to come out and I think he could be one of those big games. I mean, heck, last week he didn't even play that great. I think he had 300 and how many yards? It was the turnovers that really killed him, but he had 338 yards last week, 2 touchdowns, and then he ran for 47 yards on 6 attempts. I mean, he still did good last week, and then everybody, it seemed like he didn't do that great, but he still put up a lot of points. I think he's going to blow the doors off against Dallas, and I think Dallas is going to be hurt until they can get their offense shored up. All right, so moving on to running back, or do we want to stick with our starts? We can move on to running back. We got outside the top 10. We need 2 of them. Who you got, Josh? Starts outside the top 10. Aaron Jones. I'm liking him against Chicago coming in. I think that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur are going to realize they did not use him quite as much as they probably should have last week, and I think he bounces back with a good game. Also, I really like Kareem Hunt against the Jets. I think he's going to come out. He looked really good last week. I think him and Chubb have big weeks, but I think Kareem Hunt with the catches, I think he has another really good week. I think we got Josh back in here now. There we go.
Yeah, I lost you for a minute.
No, I was just carrying on. I just finished up. I talked about Aaron Jones against Chicago a little bit, and then I'm on start running backs outside the top 10, and then I just talked a little bit about Kareem Hunt against the Jets. I like both of them this week. I think Hunt's going to come out and do a lot more of what he did last week, honestly. I think both him and Chubb are going to have big weeks this week. I mean, they're probably going to go up, and their defense is probably going to dominate the Jets. So I think it's going to be a lot of both the Hunt and Chubb. But I think Hunt's going to the catches are going to set him apart this week. Who do you got outside the top 10 at running back for your starts?
Well, I had one of the guys you had,
Yep.
Aaron Jones.
Yep.
I expect him to have a big week.
Yep.
He kind of got outplayed last week by AJ, but I really think he's going to bounce back and have a big game. And actually, Green Bay, I think, is going to come out with a big win, and the team's going to play a lot better.
Completely.
I also have same guy I think I had last week, and he played good. Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
He had 7 catches last week. He's a former wide receiver turned running back.
Yep.
He could catch the ball good out of the backfield. He had some pretty decent rushing numbers too. So I mean, until is it Robinson? Ain't it Robinson?
Yep. Brian Robinson. He's actually back at practice already.
Man.
Yep.
Well, until he steps on the field, I think you ride Gibson.
Well, he's got 4 weeks because he's on IR, so week 5.
Yeah. So ride him because, I mean, he's looking good, and Carson Wentz likes to dump that ball off to the running back if he gets in trouble. So he's as good as they get coming out of the backfield as far as catching the ball.
Right.
So, I got Gibson and Jones as my 2 starts.
And listeners, whenever you hear us overlap players, both of us having the same one, that is both of us doing our own work and doing our own research of who we like, and then both of us coming up with the same person. That just means that just doubles down that they're looking like they're going to have good weeks, and you're going to see that a fair amount on these starts, sits, and sleepers. Some podcasts like to not have the same people, but like we've talked about outside of the pod, we really think if we overlap and have the same people, that just stresses the importance of how much we think about these players and how they're going to do each week whenever we come up with them. And
that just stresses how good they need to do to make us look good.
That's right. So, but moving on to wide receivers outside the top 15, who you got, Josh?
Wide receivers, I got Gabe Davis.
Yep.
Expecting him to have, he had a pretty good game last week, but I think, like we talked about, they were kind of forcing it to Diggs.
That's right.
In that game, and I think they're going to spread it out to him. he's a touchdown magnet, man. Ever since when he gets on the field and plays, a good amount, he's had a touchdown just about every one of those games. He's a big wide receiver. He goes up and gets the ball, and he's going to catch a couple of deep ones too.
That's
so
right.
I just expect a big year from him, and I think where we drafted him, he's going to be good for us.
And Tennessee is one of the worst teams against the big deep ball, which last week,
you're right.
Last week total, they gave up 394 yards, and let's see. I thought it was going to let
actually had that wrote down too.
But yeah, they gave up a ton of yards in the air, and I actually have him as my wide receiver this week also, which we kind of already noticed that before the pod. But yeah, both of us have Gabe Davis as a start. I think he has another big week, if not bigger. I know I have a good feeling he's going to have a bigger game than he did Thursday night this past week. And who's your other wide receiver?
I got CD Lamb. So everybody might think it's stupid, but I was doing some research, and Cooper Rush actually started one game last year.
Yeah,
he won it. He had 325 yards passing. CD Lamb went 6 for 112 in that game on 8 targets with Amari Cooper in the game.
Yep.
So, I'm think for where he dropped, he's at 19 now on one of the rankings that I did looked at. So I think at 19, I think he's going to do a lot better than people think.
And that's one of the things. One of the analysts that I heard was talking about was that. They had that connection in that game. I didn't hear any of the stats like you just brought up, which is great. So, and also, like we also talked about where you drafted CD Lamb. You probably you might not can afford to sit him. And even if you can, you're probably better off just rolling the dice with him having a monster game versus a mediocre game with somebody you got on your bench.
Well, if you sit him and he has a big game, you're going to be so mad at yourself.
That's exactly right. So, and I think that's a great point. The other one that I have, I got Julio Jones at New Orleans. Big Saints fan, but I do know somebody's got to catch the ball coming out of Tom Brady's hands. And I think it's going to be Julio, because I definitely don't think it's going to be Mike Evans, because we all know who's going to be covering him. That's going to be Lattimore. And we
all know that Julio's been a Saints killer for years.
He has. And
he has put up big numbers against the Saints over the years. I
don't think he's going to be enough to beat us, but I do think he's going to be a fantasy relevant wide receiver this week with that volume. And I think he's going to be somebody you could throw out there as a wide receiver too, or flex. I'm starting him in both the leagues that I have him in.
He looked good.
Yeah, he did
in that last game.
I think he's going to be the Antonio Brown of that offense this year. Hopefully, he just doesn't run off doing cartwheels without a shirt on midway through the season.
Yeah, I don't think you got to worry about that with him.
No, but all right. Let's go on to tight end start. What tight end you got outside the top 5?
I got Schultz for Dallas.
Yep.
Kind of the same thing. Dallas is going to have to throw the ball. They're going to be behind. I expect it to be, a lot of slinging it down the field for both both teams. And if you can't get it to Cooper, who's the next best option?
Yep.
It's going to be Schultz. So,
that's right. I agree.
I think he'll have a big game.
Yep. I got Logan Thomas at Detroit. A lot of people forgot about Logan Thomas. He has been one of the best athletic tight ends in the league, but he just cannot stay healthy to save his life. He's finally back. He's healthy. We just talked about Carson Wentz throwing the ball all over the place. Thomas is a big body. He's a matchup nightmare for defenses. And then they're going against Detroit, and Lord knows their defense is better than it has been, but still not that good. I think Logan Thomas could have a big game this week. And I honestly, I kind of halfway think Washington Detroit's going to be somewhat of a shootout.
Oh, I do too.
And I think Logan Thomas has got a good chance at a touchdown and maybe like 6 or 7 catches. So
well, I think if I ain't mistaken, Detroit might have put up like 35 points in the last game.
Yeah, they did. And I think that means Washington's going to have to throw the ball. And I think Logan Thomas is going to have a good chance. Real quick, favorite kicker this week?
Cade York.
All right. I've got him here in a little bit. I got Greg Joseph at Philadelphia. I mean, he did great last week. Great offense for Minnesota.
They're going to put points on the board. Yeah.
Yep. Favorite defense this week?
I got the Cleveland Browns.
I got the Cleveland Browns against the Jets as well. I think that should tell you something right there. Then we'll move on to sits. Quarterbacks outside top 5. Somebody outside the top 5 you really don't want to play this week. Who you got?
Tom Brady against my Saints.
I got the same one.
Seems like they have the cheat code for Tom Brady.
Yep. I mean, he's out of the last 5 games, he's barely went over 200 yards out of 3 of them. And then one of them, he had a good game, but out of the last 5 games, he is pretty much done nothing except for one decent game. And I think, it's going to be a little bit more of that. He might be okay, but I don't think he's going to be somebody is even going to crack the top 10. He's somebody I'd start Carson Wentz over him this week. I
would too.
There's several options out there that you probably want to try to stream instead of starting Tom Brady against the Saints. And that's who both of us have. So there you go on that. All right, running back you got outside the top 10 that you don't want to play this week.
Rashad Penny, the rookie.
Yep, Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker is supposed to be back this week.
Yep.
So I expect him to pull some of the carries away. I mean, Penny didn't look bad last week.
Looked great.
But he didn't look just, but
he
didn't
fine.
just put up crazy numbers.
No.
But they really like this rookie.
Yep.
They're going to put him in the game. And if he does good, heck, you might just leave him in for a while to see what he does. But, if you're splitting carries in Seattle, whose offense shouldn't be real good,
I completely agree.
I don't know that I would kind of wait and see what happens.
I don't think that it's going to be a situation you want to be involved in with both of them healthy right now.
Splitting carries.
That's right. For me, I've got David Montgomery at Green Bay.
Yep.
For one, Green Bay's defense, I think, is going to bounce back. They didn't live up to the hype last week that everybody's been touting them, saying they're one of the best improved defenses all off season. But also, I think it factors in that you got Khalil Herbert sneaking up on Montgomery, and you also got the worst offensive line going up against one of the better defensive lines in the league. Not to mention Green Bay's linebacking core is pretty solid as well. So I don't want any part of David Montgomery. I think Khalil Herbert probably outplays him this week. But, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and I think it probably ends up getting closer to a 50-50.
I agree.
With Montgomery and Herbert, especially if Herbert keeps outplaying.
Yep. Wide receiver outside the top 15, who you got that you don't want to play this week?
Rashad Bateman for Baltimore. Miami has one of the best
secondaries.
Secondaries in the league.
Exactly.
He didn't do a whole lot last week. They might end up having to run the ball a little more.
Yep.
So I don't really like him this week.
I like Rashad Bateman season long, but I'm right there with you. I've got him in a couple leagues that I don't have to play him, and he's somebody that I'm not going to play this week. I even picked up somebody off the waiver wire that I'm going to talk about here in a minute that I'm going to play over him. But I do like him season long, and heck, he could put up a good game because he's a heck of an athlete. And but I think like
he could break for a long one. Yeah,
like you just said, it's a good defense he's going against, and chances are they're going to run the ball more. And I don't think he has a great game this week.
Well, if you're playing matchups, you definitely don't want to play him.
No, definitely not. Wide receiver, I got Drake London against the Rams. Looked pretty good last week. You probably have him as like a wide receiver 2. He came out healthy and outplayed Kyle Pitts against the Saints, which was a big surprise to a lot of people. But they're going against the Rams this week, who got embarrassed on Thursday Night Football. And I got a feeling that if Jalen Ramsey is not on Kyle Pitts, which he very well might be, but I think they're probably going to put one of their safeties on Kyle Pitts. But I think Jalen Ramsey is going to take away Drake London. And after he looked like burnt toast last week, I think he is going to lock the rookie down, and I don't think we're going to see too much out of him this week. So I would highly advise trying to find somebody else to plug in at that spot. Anything to add to that, Josh?
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a defense that's going to come back firing against an offense that looked okay last week, but I don't think they're going to look that great this week.
One thing I will say, he does look like the number 1 wide receiver there, though.
He does, and he looks the part for a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
You give him him and Christian Watson for Green Bay. You give them a couple years, maybe even this year and next year. I think they're going to be close to matchup proof, honestly.
I think London's going to grow up quick because he's going to have to be the number 1 there.
He's definitely going to get the opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
Tight end, you got outside the top 5 that you don't want to start.
Kittle.
Yep.
He's banged up.
Yep.
And honestly, we still don't know if he's going to play.
Yeah, I really
but
don't
if he does
think he'll play, but if he does, I wouldn't play him either. I think he'll be on a snap count, and I really think they might try to get the ball into Debo's and Ayuk's hands a little bit more, and then they're going to get it to Wilson. Yep. So I think that's a great call. Mine outside the top 5, it's not really a shocker, but I got Hunter Henry at Pittsburgh. He's ranked, I think like number 10 or something, 10 or 11 this week, but Pittsburgh defense looked pretty solid last week. They did lose TJ Watt, but it's more to say that New England's defense.
They're still a good defense.
New England's offense looked terrible. And
I don't want no part of anybody on that team.
I just don't see him doing very much this week coming up. What's just for fun? I don't even know if you have any, but what's a kicker you don't want any part of this week?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
All right. Well, I mean, I'll go ahead. We can roll through this. I got Graham Gano at Carolina. That's for the Giants. He was one of the, I think he's like 10 or 11th. I just went down, picked a kicker that was rostered in top 10 or 11 of leagues. And
I'll go Randy Bullock.
There you go.
With Tennessee.
Yep.
Just throw that out there.
Yep.
Off the top of my head.
There's 2 of them right there. Graham Gano, Randy Bullock. Don't start them. Go pick up another kicker. Defense you don't want to play this week.
Eagles.
Yep.
Eagles against Minnesota. I don't like the Eagles.
That's going to be a shootout. And I picked one that might surprise some people, but I think this offense is a lot better than people are going to give them credit for this year. And I got the Ravens against Miami. They looked a lot better. They're a big play waiting to happen. It seems like every play with Tyreek Hill and Waddle out there. They're starting to get their running game going a little bit more. Mostert's out there. Talk about another big play waiting to happen. He's still healthy, thank goodness. I think the Ravens defense is getting there. They were one of the worst in the league last year. They looked way better this past week, but I think it's going to be a rough go. They're a top ranked defense, but I think Miami really puts it to them this week. I think that could be maybe a little bit higher scoring game than people are giving it credit, but I think the Ravens run the ball, and I don't think they throw the ball very much if they win.
They try to slow down Miami by running the ball.
And if they do slow the game down, their defense, is probably not going to get as many opportunities to score a touchdown, which is what you might need for a top defense anyway. Sleepers. Let's move on to the sleepers category. Who you got? A quarterback sleeper outside the top 15?
I'm going to go Trey Lance. He had 13 rushes last week in terrible conditions. If he gets 13 this week, he could get close to 100 yards rushing plus another 200.
Yep.
You know, and I think he has a bounce back game. He has to, or he's going to lose his job.
Yeah, so you're right.
I expect him to bounce back and maybe be a top 10 quarterback this week.
I like it. One I got outside the top 15, I like Matt Ryan this week at Jacksonville. Looked great last week. Just had one touchdown, which is why he wasn't ranked a little bit higher. But I think he threw for 300 and something yards. Let me double check here. Threw for 352 yards last week at Houston. Had one touchdown, one interception. Even had 4 rushes. I don't know where that came from because he ain't rushed that many times in 3 years in Atlanta. But he looked good. He's got the weapons, the offensive line. He's got the running back. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a heck of a year, but at Jacksonville, I think he's going to be somebody that's going to sneak into the top 10 this week. Definitely. And I know people with Michael Pittman will be glad to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
Running back you got that's a sleeper outside your top 20.
I'm going Jeff Wilson Jr. I just think the number one running back in a primarily running offense. I know Debo's going to take carries away, Lance, but I still think he has a pretty good game, and you better use him before he gets hurt because San Francisco running backs are never safe.
Yep, completely agree. And I've got 2 kind of. There's one that I would be sitting to watch just in case, but I've got Ramondre Stevenson for at Pittsburgh. I know we talked about him earlier. He looked not the part last week, but with Ty Montgomery going on IR, I think he's got to be the one that steps up and gets the catches. If he gets more opportunity, he's another one of those guys that's kind of a big play weight. He's a big, fast athlete. And I think if he gets more opportunity, he's gonna break out. And I think it could be a week at Pittsburgh. They could be struggling to move the ball. Maybe Damian Harris isn't getting it done. Stevenson gets more opportunity. Who knows? But I think he's got a chance with Ty Montgomery being out to do more than what people are thinking for sure. The other one is Nyheim Hines at Jacksonville. He's just kind of one of those guys where if they got to throw the ball a lot, then he's going to end up having a good week. He had a pretty good week last week. But also a couple of their wide receivers, Alec Pierce is in concussion protocol. And I think whenever he went out last week, Nyheim Hines started playing the slot a little bit more and kind of started turning it on. And I don't think Pierce is going to clear concussion protocol for this week. So I think Pierce – I think if he doesn't clear it, and I think Nyheim Hines has got a good chance at putting up some more solid numbers. Could be a sneaky flex play for you this week.
Probably a DFS play that you could get really cheap.
Yep, definitely. If Alec Pierce is out, they're kind of short on wide receivers. I think Nyheim Hines steps into that role for them. Wide receivers outside the top 20, you got as a sleeper. Who you got, Josh?
Well, somebody that you've already said, but he's pretty. I think he's outside the top 20. It's Julio Jones.
Yeah, he is.
I expect him. We both talked about that.
Yep.
You can go ahead with yours. We know about him.
Yeah, you're good. Honestly, I talked about him earlier. That's why I didn't have him down here because I got this other guy that I really like, DJ Chark versus Washington. Snuck around and had a really good game as the number 2 pass catcher for Detroit. And it's kind of crazy to be talking about wanting to start the number 2 pass catcher in Detroit. But, man, I seen some footage. He looked really good. He is their deep option there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is definitely the target hog. But honestly, what their offense kind of reminds me a little bit of is the Chargers. You got Amon-Ra playing the role of Keenan Allen. And you got DJ Chark playing the role of Mike Williams. And I'm not saying that they're going to come out and do that every week. But, last week alone, he had 8 targets, 4 catches for 52 yards. And he averaged yards per target was about 6.5, which was about 2 yards more than Amon-Ra. But he averaged 13 yards per catch, which is very important because the ones that he did catch were the deep balls, And if you play in a league where you get bonuses for bigger catches, he might be somebody you want to look at sliding into your flex this week against a Washington defense that really hasn't looked that great. And also a Washington team that's probably going to put up more points than people are going to realize because their offense just looks better. So like we talked about a little bit earlier, I think this is going to be more of a shootout than people are thinking. And but I like DJ Chark a lot this week, and I'm actually starting him in 2 leagues at my flex where I was kind of hurting a little bit on some guys that are injured. So I like him a lot this week. Tight end outside the top 10. Who you got as a sleeper tight end, Josh?
Robert Tonyan.
Yep.
I feel like, he played last week. They didn't even think he was going to play, and he actually looked pretty good. I mean, he didn't look like he was hurt at all. I think he gets in the end zone this week.
Yep.
I mean, actually, I think that's a pretty good prop bet. I really think.
I think that's an
he probably
excellent pick.
gets a touchdown.
Yep. I looked at him very hard before I picked mine. Honestly, it was between him and this guy. That would have been another one we would have doubled up on, but I like him a lot this week. I really feel like it's going to be Alan Lazard and Robert Tonyan. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get back to the veterans on the team, and they're going to get right this week. And I think that's a great pick.
When you get down there at the bottom of wide receivers, you're usually just looking for one that can get a touchdown.
That's right.
Because they're not going to have a high volume.
Yeah.
And I really think, I think he gets in the end zone.
Yeah, tight end, that's all you can hope for is a touchdown whenever you're streaming them or picking up somebody, to kind of play if you had somebody get injured like Kittle, Mine outside the top 10, I got Hayden Hurst at Dallas. Just kind of shed more light. I like Joey Burrow this week. And honestly, Hayden Hurst kind of snuck in there. Got a fair amount of targets last week and actually had a decent little game. And also, I think he is one of the beneficiaries of T. Higgins being out. It looks like he had 8 targets last week, 5 catches for 46 yards, which if you get that out of your tight end, I think just about anybody's probably happy.
That's about 10 points. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but I think he's got a good chance against Dallas. I think their offense is going to really bounce back. I like him as a sleeper tight end. Anybody else you want to talk about, specifically sleepers?
I don't guess. I think we've talked about.
Yeah, I think.
Pretty much
and then just to reiterate kickers, I got Cade York as a kicker sleeper because for some reason he's still rostered in like less than 20% of leagues after he put up I think 14 points last week. And I don't think they're going to hesitate letting him run out there to kick some 50 and 60 yarders this year. And I know that's
not after what he showed him in practice.
But Cade York is somebody that I think after this next week is going to be on just about everybody's team. And then another defense I got to throw out there. I think the Bengals defense against Dallas, Dallas is going to have to put up some points, to win, obviously, because I think Bengals are gonna really score and get right this week. But I think the Bengals,
since we're talking about kickers, I just want to mention Harrison Butker is out.
Yep.
Which I guess that game's going on now, but
that's what I was thinking about.
I wish we could have got that in before the game because some people don't look at the Thursday night game.
That's right.
Like they do the Sunday, and they might have left him in there, and they're going to get a 0.
Yep, and Butker is a very widely owned kicker, and hopefully
I had him. I had to drop him.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully you caught that before the game, but if not, be looking to follow us on social media on Facebook, and then pick up the podcast on all your. I think we're on just about every podcast streaming network under Dirty.
Yeah, I think we are.
Dirty Boot Dirty Boot Boys, and be looking for the podcast on there. And we're going to start trying to get some graphics out there with waiver wires and injury updates, and just kind of covering over what happened the weekend before waiver wires hit. That way we can get information out to all y'all looking to get some tips on who to pick up and who to drop for the next week. But I think that just about covers it. Josh, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I want to go watch the end of this football game. How about you?
I'm watching. I'm about to go get me something to eat and go sit down in front of the TV and enjoy the second half of I think it's going to be a lot of fireworks. So
yeah,
but that's all for us. Be looking for the next podcast. We're going to try to get one out every week, and we appreciate y'all listening. Y'all have a good evening,
and good luck this week with your fantasy football teams.
Definitely. All right.